Greetings everyone, this is KushagraBisht and I'll be talking about is India's GDP overestimated. So recently there has been a lot of clamor about the way India calculates its GDP. And in a recent work involving economist Arvind Subramaniam, who was the former chief economic advisor to the government of India, their work states that 22% of India's GDP might actually be missing. And the reason lies in the way India calculates its GDP. So India comprises of a large informal sector, which comprises of small businesses whose economic data is hard to capture. So what India does is that India uses the formal sector of the economy as a proxy for the informal sector of the economy. Now historically this relationship held true, but post 2015 there were major shocks to the economy that completely obliterated this relationship. And these shocks were demonetization, the introduction of GST, the NBFC crisis, and the COVID migrant labor crisis. Now, what happened during this period was that though the formal sector of the economy was growing at an accelerating pace, the informal sector completely crippled down. So what we ended up doing was that we ended up proxying a declining sector with a growing sector. And this resulted in severe overestimation of Indian GDP. Second reason that they cite is that India used the wholesale price index to deflate its GDP. The problem with wholesale price index is that it is very volatile. So we might either end up overestimating our GDP or underestimating our GDP just based on global price fluctuations. And it does not accurately reflect the prices that the producers eventually end up paying for their raw materials. Another problem with wholesale price index is that it does not account for services. And India has a very big service economy. So we end up using a wrong deflator for the service contribution. And the third reason that they cite is that there is a relationship between few macroeconomic indicators like electricity usage, the investment, and the GDP growth. Now, this relationship no longer holds true for India because though the GDP numbers are really good and robust, the electricity usage, the investment is not happening at the same rate as the GDP is growing. But the relationship still holds true for all the other countries. Indian government has also recognized some of the flaws that are present in the way India calculates its GDP. And it has addressed some of the concerns. India is now moving towards a double deflation method in order to better account for inflation in the economy. Besides this, there have been efforts to better capture the data of the informal sector. So for instance, India has started the annual survey of unincorporated sector enterprises. But economists still point out that there is a concern in these surveys, and that is that we have not had an economic census for very long. The last census was in 2011. So it is very difficult to come up with a representative sample of the economy and select which informal sector enterprises would you like to include in the survey so that you have a representative sample. Hence, there has been some progress in updating our methods, but still there's a long way to go. Thank you.